Hello, everybody. This is Dane Gentry with the Standing Back Up podcast. This morning, I'm here with my special guest, Dave Albin. Am I saying your last name right, Albin, or is it Albin?
Well, I'll respond.
Yeah, it's the
It's
South.
Albin.
It's the
Yeah.
South. We say Albin here, and y'all might say Albin. How you doing, my friend?
Good, man. Good, Jane. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm interested in you, man. A few things about you stood out to me. One, you've been sober for 35 plus years now. That's one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And the firewalk thing, we'll get into that too. But so, man, how'd you begin your walk with sobriety?
I got up that morning and I knew that I was at the end of my rope, man. There was so much physical and emotional pain, Dane, that I'm like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm just not going to do this. I was grossly addicted. My drug of choice was alcohol, but cocaine and heroin were very prevalent, other hard drugs. And I was in my third marriage at this point. I married the woman. She was a bartender. Imagine that, right? And she had 3 kids, and I loved them. They were great kids, a great family. And I literally, as I look back, I know why I married her, because I thought, well, maybe this will calm me down and get my life in order. And, it was just one of those things, man. When I woke up that morning, I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. I'm not doing this. And so because of the physical pain and the emotional pain, I thought the only option in that moment was to take my own life. And so as I'm contemplating with that, I've got, I've got a pistol, I've got a 357. And as I'm contemplating that, I'm going, hold on a damn minute. If you do that, if you pull that trigger, yeah, maybe your troubles are over, or at least the pain's going to stop. However, those 3 kids and their mom, who you love dearly, you're going to ruin their life. You're going to destroy their life. I mean, who the hell has to clean this up?
Right.
They do. So I'm like, you can't do that shit, man. You got to figure out another way. You got to step it up, man. And so the next thought I had, Dane, was, well, why don't you call Alcoholics Anonymous? And what's interesting about that moment was I didn't even know who the hell AA was.
Right. I
didn't know anybody in AA. I'd never been to AA. Who the hell was Alcoholics Anonymous? Yet there it was.
Yeah.
So I did. I called, and I got this wonderful human being on the other end of the line. And over the years, I've affectionately nicknamed her Madge.
Okay.
And the reason I did that is because she talked like this. She probably smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day. a badass, man. That was her job. She was the gatekeeper. She was answering the phones for intergroup, right? So her job was to interview you. And if she thought you had a chance at getting sober, she'd call somebody to come get you.
Okay, so back then it was kind of like that. That's kind of how it went. You went through an interview process in a way, huh?
If you made that phone call.
Okay.
A lot of people just ended up coming. Now, I went to a place called the Stepping Stones Group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Fairfax, Virginia. And it was an all men's group.
Right.
And we had a house. It was on 5 acres. And most of the guys showed up there either they came up in a bus because they came with some type of rehab group. Some of them were sent by the court. We had all kinds of different people and places because we were in Fairfax, Virginia. We got a lot of really interesting people.
Right.
We got Redskins.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what they were called back then.
Yeah.
Professional athletes, if you will. We had people from CIA, FBI, Secret Service, the 3-letter agencies out of DC. So we got a very, very diverse group of men who showed up to the Stepping Stones group. I just happened to, come via that phone call. They also had a telephone that rang at the house, and we had somebody that tried to man that, most of the time. So not only could you call intergroup, but you could literally call the Stepping Stones group directly.
Right.
And then we would talk to them and say, hey, here's where we are. Here's our address. Come on over, go to a meeting, check it out. If it's not for you, go back out and drink.
Right.
They were a really, really hardcore group. So I got there. A guy came and picked me up, this guy named Lauren, and I went to 4 meetings my first day.
4 meetings your first day?
My first day. I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30 meeting. And they took a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and they signed it. A bunch of the guys signed it. And, you know, they flipped it open on the first page and it said, before you take that first drink, call one of us.
Right.
And they put their first name and their phone number. And they gave me that big book. And then, of course, they gave me a Living Sober book. They gave me, obviously, the medallion. I'm holding it up here, not like everybody's watching the video. For those on the audio out there, I'm holding up a chip that they give you in AA, right? So you get one the day you get there, and then they give you one at 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then 1 year. And then I'm holding up one here I got last year for 35 years.
It's awesome.
So, you know, so that they gave you that. And so I went home, you know, after 4 meetings, and that next morning, in fact, the next morning I got a call from one of the guys at 8 o'clock in the morning. And because they knew I was bad. They knew I was suicidal. Right. They knew that I was not in good shape. So John called me that next morning. And he said, hey, man, good morning. How you doing this morning? And I'm like, how do you think I'm doing, you asshole? What are you talking about? I want to kill somebody, man. I might start with you, you know, calling me at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he was really cool, man. He's like, yeah, I hear you, man. He says, look, man, he goes, I know where you live. We talked yesterday, and you live right around the corner from me. Let me do this for you. Let me come get you. Let me take you to breakfast, and I'll take you to another AA meeting. That's how it started, man. Yeah. There's that unconditional love of AA, man. Here comes a guy. I'm threatening him, and I wasn't kidding.
Right.
I was a mess, man. I was suicidal, homicidal. I was, you know, I was a 5-car collision, a train wreck, and a plane crash all rolled into one. And so John came and got me, and the bond ensued, and you know, 1 day turned into a month, and then, you know, 6 months, and then a year, and, you know, again, as I said, I've been sober ever since. And I fell in love with AA, man. You know, it's interesting, Dane, because as I look back in those days, you know, back in '88 when I first got sober, the other places, there's only really 2 places I ever felt at home. One was a shitty little bar somewhere where I could hide in the back and nobody'd see who I was, or, you know, or that I was there drinking myself to death, or an AA meeting. Yeah. It was like, you know, what contrast, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, as I got older and as I got used to being around people, I was a complete introvert. I didn't want to be around anybody. I just couldn't communicate. You know, how do you go fishing without drinking? How do you mingle with people without drinking? How do you go to a picnic without drinking? How do you get through Christmas, Thanksgiving, all those things that we associated drinking, right? I had to figure out how to do all those things without drinking.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's the whole 1 day at a time process, man. You know, you know, AA just shows you the way, every step of the way, with the steps, with the traditions, obviously, to learn how to operate within the group. Obviously, the steps teach you how to put your life back together and how to go clean up the past and move forward, living 1 day at a time. And what I loved about AA too was the preamble. You know, the preamble's in there, right? And it says, when anyone anywhere reaches out, I want the hand of AA to be there, and for that, I'm responsible. Well, hell, I took that to heart, because that's what they did for me, right? It's almost like a multi-level marketing program, you know, how you're treated when you first get there is how you'll treat others when they come in, right?
That's right.
And those men showed me love and kindness and consideration, and they had something I wanted, and they were happy, they were joyous, and they were free. And I said, I want that. That's what I want. And I think that's what we all want. And
without a doubt.
Right. And I learned it. So yeah, man.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of the whole deal with the meetings and all these things, you know, and the newcomer, as we know, you know, and we hear it all the time where we say, you know, reach out to the newcomer, because for those who don't know, if you are trying to get sober, and let's hope that you are, I know you're going to be uncomfortable when you get there. Most people are. I was very uncomfortable, and I considered myself to be this big, tough, strong guy, but I felt like a little, you know, scared to death baby the first time I walked in the room, and even the first time of raising my hand. But you'll be so glad if you do, because people there are going to welcome you more than you've ever been welcomed anywhere other than, I guess, maybe church or something, whatever. But that's the good thing about it. You are right, and it's brotherhood or sisterhood, if you will. It's a family of people, and it's an immediate family. You know, because people see us when we're broken like that, and they want to help us and fix us, man.
100%.
That's been my experience with it. My drug was a little bit different. Mine was heroin. Well, you said you did heroin and cocaine too.
Yeah.
mine was primarily opiates from a young age. Started with pain pills. Progressed into K4 Dilaudid. At the age of 17, I started shooting that, and then went to prison for a long time.
I read that.
Then I got out and went back to prison. I got out and went back to prison. Got out and went back to prison. So I've been to prison 4 times.
4 times?
Yeah, 4 times.
Damn, dude, the chances of making it out. Look at you. Whoa.
Yeah, and you know, man, I ain't got no more scars on my body than I ever had when I went in the first time. That's kind of that's a big deal. But I kept going back on the same sentence, man. I only got in trouble twice, really. You know what I mean? But it was they were a lot of crimes in one. Basically, it's all drug addict crimes,
Right,
typical
of course.
stuff. And so yeah, I would violate parole because I would get out and I never worked on my drug problem. And so I would get out and I'd relapse immediately for whatever reason I would come up with. And then the parole officer would violate me, send me back in, because in Tennessee, there's just not no help in there for you. There is no NAAA. There's none of that in there. Church services every now and then, but a lot of that stuff's even gone now from what I'm hearing. I ain't been in prison in 5 years now, but almost 6. But
Get the fuck out, will you?
oh, it's over with, man. You know, I finally understood the problem. You know, the problem at the end of the day was me. But
no shit.
You know, we finally figured that out, man. You know, my wife, man.
Great.
She refused to give up, and here we are.
God love her, man. Woo.
Yeah, God love her. That's right. She sure put up with a lot, man. You know, I've had some people on talking about narcissistic abuse and stuff like that, and what I found out from them was that I wasn't narcissistic, but I was still abusing my wife in a sense. I wasn't physical or anything like that, but the things I was doing, you know, taking all of her money, you know, doing all these things, and that's a form of abuse as well. And we have to learn to live with all that too, and that's part of it.
It's interesting. We talk about, you know, the difference between an alcoholic and a drug addict when they steal from you. Have you ever heard this?
Mm-mm.
So the difference is that when an alcoholic steals from you, they'll deny it.
Okay.
When a drug addict steals from you, they help you look for it.
Yeah, and every time and try to help you find it. Yeah,
I think, hey, did you search over here under the bed? Where is that money? You know.
And I'm sure I've done that. Every time someone says
right?
that, I've heard that part of, you know, we help you look for it. And every time I think back on it, I can't really point one out. But I'm sure there has been an incident where I did, you know, because I was pretty bad. You know, I don't know, man. I'm not that I'm any better or any different than anyone, but I always felt different in a sense, if that makes any sense. Like,
oh yeah,
like, man, I just would look around and I'm like, man, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. I know I could do so much more in my life. And I feel like I'd get caught in these cycles, as you know what I'm talking about. And it's just like it becomes a
figure 8, man.
And there you are. You can't get out of it, man.
Can't get out of it, man. Terminal uniqueness.
Yeah, but today we're living to help, man. And so far so good. People are catching on. And
yeah.
All right, man. What kind of childhood you have? Tell me that. My listeners.
Childhood was so a couple of months before I was born, my biological father, we don't really know what happened, Dane. All we know is he hurt his head in 1954, I think in Korea.
Okay.
And he was a pilot. And so anyway, to save his life, they put a plate in his head. Well, it also took his life because it was extremely painful. And he used to complain to mom all the time. He used to say things like, you know, I don't know how long I can take this.
Right.
So he said he was going to the grocery store one day. We never saw or heard from him again. Mom never heard a word from him after that moment. So she assumed that he just took his own life. And he was very excited about, you know, the birth of me.
Right.
She did say that. He was like, you know, he was looking forward to being a father. So again, we lost him. So I was born to a single mom, and she already had 2 boys from another marriage, and a cousin that was living with us, and my grandmother. So there were 6 of us living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, California. Mom was working up the street at the Roosevelt Hotel. Well, mom came out of that generation that's the hardest working generation that's ever walked the planet, or at least that's my opinion. They went through the Great Depression.
I agree. Yeah.
That teaches you some shit.
Yes,
Trust
sir.
me.
Yes, sir.
And they went through World War II. That teaches you some shit.
Yep.
Because why all the men, a lot of people don't understand this today. The youth today doesn't understand any of this. That when all the men were fighting the war, either in Germany or in Europe or in the Pacific against the Japanese, what did they think the women were all doing? This is why I always find it interesting that women, this idea that they have to prove themselves, or they can do this, or they can do that. It's like, shut the hell up already. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What do you think happened during World War II? What do you think women were doing?
Right.
They were doing everything.
Everything.
Everything. They built Jeeps. They built trucks. They built munitions. My mom was known as Rosie the Riveter.
Okay.
She worked for McDonnell Douglas. She was up on the wing of an airplane driving rivets, man.
Yeah.
So, and they, they handled pretty much everything medically. They handled the USO, and the troops were coming back and forth. I mean, again, without women, we lose the war. Let's put it that way.
Without a doubt. Yeah, I'm familiar, and I know, but like you said, there's a lot of people younger that don't, and they don't get it. They don't understand.
Nope. So mom was very resourceful. Her whole family was, because again, back during the Great Depression, if something broke, you didn't have it or you fixed it. There's your choice. If you want food, great. Get your ass up in the morning and get out there into the garden and start gardening.
That's right.
You want clothes? Great. Start sewing.
Yeah.
I mean, the life was so radically different back then.
Man.
So anyway, mom worked hard. She knew how to do that. It wasn't enough, Dane. 6 mouths, really? So when I was 5, man, she went to her oldest sister, Pat, and she said, Pat, I can't feed David. Will you adopt him? And Pat and Bob Albin, who would have been my aunt and uncle, now become my parents at 5 years old. So they moved me from Hollywood to Long Beach. Now, Bob is career military officer, right? Highly decorated in World War II, career military, Army, National Guard. He was an officer, so we had a good income. We had a nice house. We always had nice things. We went on nice vacations from the time they adopted me at 5 years old. And then on the first day of summer, 1964, I'm now 11 years old. My mom comes in the TV room and says, David, come in the kitchen. Your father and I need to speak with you. And I sit down, and her mom looks at me with tears in her eyes, puts her hand on my arm, and she goes, David, what we need to tell you is we're not your parents. What? What do you mean you're not my parents? Of course you're my parents.
Right.
What, are you going to walk me outside and tell me that the sky's not blue next? I mean, what are you talking about here, right? So she went on to tell me what happened, that my mother, my biological mother, who's my Aunt Dean, that's what I called her. She goes, that's your mom. And I remember thinking, I don't even like her.
Wow.
Right? And it's interesting. It's not that I didn't like her. It's just, it was weird when she was around me. Why was it weird? Because when she was around me, she wanted to be around me.
Right.
She wanted to sit right next to me.
Yeah.
She wanted to hold me. She wanted to hug me. She wanted to kiss me. She wanted to engulf me. Well, no shit. I'm her son. Bless her heart. I get it now. But back then, when you're a kid, you're like, that's my weird aunt.
Right.
She's manic almost when she's around me. But that's why I was just her son, and she wanted to be as close to me as she possibly could anytime she was around me, because she only saw me, part-time after that.
Right.
So bless her heart for that. Shortly after they told me this, Dane, both of my parents, and I'm going to refer to them as my parents.
Yes.
Bob and Pat Albin, right? They both started drinking. They'd sworn off drinking when they adopted me at 5. And so things went boop. They went downhill really fast. Pat was not a mean drunk, but she would pass out at the kitchen table kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Bob, on the other hand, he was violent. He was not a nice guy. He was a super, super great guy when he was sober, but man, he would turn into an absolute animal when he was drinking. And so I became the gatekeeper as well. Right. So he'd drive to a bar and couldn't drive, and we'd have to go pick him up and then go pick his car up. And I mean, it was just on and on and on. And so one day they both went to the grocery store, and I don't know what this stuff is that's turning them into these people that I don't recognize. Right.
Right.
But they were hiding the booze in plain sight. I knew where it was. So when they went to the grocery store that day, I went for it, and I went and grabbed it. Again, they were hiding in plain sight. It was brandy. It was it was about I think it was a half gallon.
Okay.
And I took a coffee cup. I filled it half full, Dane. Boom, down it went. I'm 11. I never had a chance. No. I truly believe I was an alcoholic on the spot, because it was like pouring rocket fuel into me. My whole body and nervous system just went nuts. And so I started acting out right there, going forward with alcohol. It had me around the throat from the very first drink at 11 years old. Well, as I progressed into school, I didn't progress. I was there, I was showing up, but I certainly wasn't, it was too much shit going on at home.
Yeah.
And by the time I was a junior in high school, they literally brought me into the principal's office one day and said, Albin, you're a threat to our school. You're out. Okay.
And what grade was that?
Junior in high school.
Junior. Okay.
And I was glad. I'm like, great. I didn't want to go to school anyway. What a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
There was a song back then, Dane. It was written by, I think it was Simon and Garfunkel. And Simon, I remember the lyrics of the song were, when I think back to all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I could think at all. Well, that was like my theme song because I was already an entrepreneur in my junior year. That started early. Literally, my entrepreneurship started probably 10 or 11 years old. And the reason and how it started is, number one, I had a paper route. Well, that's a 7-day-a-week job.
Yep.
You got to go pick up they drop your papers at a spot where it's, undercover, like it was the San Diego freeway. And we were, in the underpass underneath, right? So it was, we had protection from the rain and sun. We go there, pick up our papers, fold them, ride your bike, go throw the papers and deliver them. So that was a full-time job. That's entrepreneurship at its finest. I lived across the street from a golf course. And here's what I learned about golfers at a young age. They suck.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd take my Stingray bicycle. I'd go ride the perimeter of the golf course. And guess what I'd find?
Golf balls.
You betcha.
Yeah.
I'd take them home and clean them. I'd go back to the golf course, and in the pro shop in the trash cans, they threw out the boxes that the new balls came in.
Okay.
I had no use for them. So I'd take them out of trash can. I was going to say steal them. They threw them out, so I wasn't really stealing them.
Right.
And I'd go take the balls that I found and I'd put them in those boxes. And I'd organize them like Titleist and Maxfly and Royal and Dunlop, right? And then I'd go back to the parking lot of the golf course, and guess what I do?
Sell them.
Sell them, man. And so, and then my mom Pat grew beautiful flowers in the backyard.
Oh, okay.
And she'd cut them and bundle them up. She actually took the flowers. She taught me something really, really interesting. I think your audience will love this, especially if you try it. So when you get a flower, instead of cutting it at the bottom, cut it at an angle, because that opens up more surface area for the water to get in, right?
Right.
The other thing she did when she bundled them and arranged them, she put them in a bucket. She put 7-Up into the bucket.
Okay.
Holy crap. The flower will outlast any florist 3-1 back in those days. So I'm a kid out on the street corner selling flowers that outlast the florist 3-1. So I'm negotiating, right? It was beautiful. What I learned a lot about that is women never negotiated with me, ever. Not once that I remember. But men would. Men would try to beat this young kid up, right?
Right.
And I'm like, nope, I ain't doing it.
Yeah, it ain't happening. Yeah.
You pay the full price, because I'm not going to lower my price. I had one guy argue with me one time. He taught me a great lesson. He's like, so, hey, I'll get, because I was selling it for like 50 cents a bundle.
Yeah.
Right. And he'd offer me 75 cents for 2. And I'd be, well, why would I do that? Well, because I'm buying 2. I'm going, yeah, but if I sell you one for 50 cents and the next guy that comes up gives me 50 cents, I still made $1. So help me understand why I'm going to sell it to you for 75.
Right.
Right. I'm a kid. I'm figuring this out. Right. So anyway, I had an entrepreneurial spirit when I got kicked out of high school. I went and got a really good job at a grocery store. I joined the Retail Clerks Union, who were the brother and sister union with the Teamsters. I got a really good job. I started making good money. I bought a new Mach 1 Mustang. I got my own apartment down in Belmont Shore, California. I mean, and I needed a good job because I had a drug habit.
Right.
I was working night crews, so I did a lot of amphetamines. They were known as bathtub whites.
Yeah.
And then, and I was still doing other hard drugs. So I needed a good job.
Yeah.
And, it's, how that looks, how that acts, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Again, the drugs and alcohol got you around the throat. And then one day you wake up, and that was on June 8th of 88. So that's kind of the backstory on, how I got sober.
June 8th. That's my brother's birthday, June 8th. And my drinking and drugging started at age 11 too, man. You said 11. I had an accident. Wow. I got hit by a truck walking home from school, but I was already smoking pot and drinking whenever my mother my mother was an alcoholic and drug addict as well. She got her shit together and was doing good for a while. But at this time, she was with this guy that I couldn't stand. He didn't like me and I didn't like him. And so they would go camping or whatever, and I wouldn't go because one, I didn't like him, but it was really looking back on it more because I wanted to stay home and drink and smoke weed and shit, And so
Right.
I remember being 11 and passing out in this field. I lived in a trailer park, and there was like a field like where the basketball goal is. At the age of 11, I remember being passed out there. I don't know how long I was there. I remember just going to sleep there or whatever. I remember waking up and just all kind of crazy stuff, man. I'd leave for days.
That was in That's in Tennessee.
That's in Tennessee. Yeah. Franklin, a little town called Franklin. I don't know if you're familiar
Franklin,
with that.
outside of Nashville.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Franklin.
Yeah. That's where I grew up at.
Interesting.
That's where I got in all my trouble at. And that's where, a whole lot of things, Franklin is a very wealthy town.
Yes, it is.
And I was not wealthy by no means. And so, not that had anything to do with, what went on with me. I made the choices to do everything I did, but I saw a lot of people with things that I never could have. And, I guess that's what kind of gave me that sense of wanting those kind of things in life, but maybe or whatever. But yeah, we were dirt road poor, man. I remember going to bed hungry. I remember all these things, but that was due to my mother not being there really. Again, she was sick and she got her shit together eventually, but there were some bad times,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's odd that we both started at 11.
Yeah.
It really got bad for me at 15, but all right. So you were successful in entrepreneurship and all these things. Drugs come along, and how fast did it really take to just really truly take a big toll on your life?
Well, it was progressive for me, because once I got to AA,
Right.
Things started to turn around really quickly. I had insomnia, right? Probably you did too, right? So my sleep patterns were all over the place, and I was up late one night, 3 o'clock in the morning. This is early on, after I got sober on June 8th, 88, and there was an infomercial, and there he was, the infomercial king, if you will. A young Tony Robbins is selling his program called Personal Power. It's a 30-day program for total success, he called it. And when I first saw the guy on the infomercial, I couldn't stand his ass.
Right.
I did not like him. I thought he was pompous. He's all motivated and shit. And I'm not, right? I'm miserable.
Right. You're miserable. Yeah.
Right. So I wasn't really congruent with a lot of it. But he said a couple of things that got me, though. Like the first thing he said was, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. And I went, holy shit, that's me. That's why I drank and drug, because I was either trying to chase some pleasure or I was running away from pain, right?
Right.
So that resonated with me. And then the one thing he said that really got me was, let me tell you how human beings make decisions. He says they do it one of two ways. They make a decision out of inspiration or desperation. And I went, oh, man, I'm pretty desperate. Maybe I should listen to this guy.
Right.
Right. So I bought his program. You did it at home. It was a 30-day program. Came in this big old box, and it came on these little white things, Dane, called cassette tapes.
Oh man, I think I remember them. Yeah.
You remember those, man?
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they're in the Smithsonian. They're right next to 8-track and reel-to-reel tapes, right?
8-track. I don't remember the reel-to-reel. That's a little bit past my time, but I remember 8-tracks though. I remember that. I do remember that. Yeah.
I remember them quite well.
Yeah.
So the bottom line was, I plugged them in. I did what the man taught me to do, and it worked. And then I ended up loaning my buddy the tape program. We got to talking one day. He goes, dude, what's going on with you? You seem really up and encouraging and motivating, and you're doing, you've lost weight, you're exercising. What's going on? I go, I've been listening to this guy by the name of Tony Robbins. He goes, I know who Tony Robbins is. I bought his book. He goes, but I never read it. I went, well, how often does that show up in your life, right?
Right.
So anyway, I loaned him my program. He went through it. 7 years later, 1995, he called me on the phone. This is, again, like 7 years after I loaned him the program. He goes, hey, man, did you know that Tony Robbins is coming to town? I'm like, no, I had no clue. He goes, dude, come on. I want to see this guy, and I bet you do too. And I go, yeah, sure. I go see Tony. I like his stuff. He goes, great. Let me do this. Let me call you back. I'll make all the arrangements. I'm going, okay. So he called me back like an hour later, and he goes, done. Here's what we do. We pick up the tickets at will call. And here's what they told us to do to prep for this event. 1, drink a lot of water. Stay hydrated. It's a 4-day event. You got to drink a lot of water. Number 2, bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room. I laugh. Anybody that's ever been to a Tony Robbins seminar knows exactly why I'm laughing, because you are going to spend a lot of time in the room. Count on it. He said, bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. And I said, okay, how much was the ticket? Dan said, $695. I went, you got to be shitting me. $700? Wow. Now, this isn't 1995.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
What's that worth today? Like 1.2, 1.3 million.
That's what I was gonna. Yeah.
Buy Bitcoin. That's what I can.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's like, okay. And just as he's getting ready to get off the phone, he goes, oh, wait. Don't go anywhere. I need to tell you something, man. The most important part, I almost forgot. I'm like, what, dude? He goes, we're going to be doing a firewalk. I'm like, firewalk? What the hell? I don't know what that means. I have no idea. I have no references. I've never heard the word firewalk in the same sentence. But my brain said no.
No, immediately.
We're not doing that shit.
Yeah.
The idea of fire and walk in the same sentence didn't sound like anything I wanted to be doing. I want to see Tony, but I ain't having nothing to do with this firewalk thing, whatever the hell that means. But I'm being subservient to Dan. I'm like, yeah, Dan, sure, firewalk. Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, no problem. All right, bro, see you then. Hung up the phone and went, no, hell no. I want to see Tony. They can't make you do this firewalk thing. And, so it's no big deal. So I just pawned it off. Well, the big day comes and you get there and you're in your seat. Tony took the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. Well, the next thing I know, Dane, it's after midnight. We've been 3,500 people, by the way, are at this event. And I've been in a room with Tony for 10 hours and he's prepping you for this firewalk, right? That I'm not doing.
Right.
And all of a sudden
that you're not doing.
He says, take your shoes off. And I'm like, oh, no. I see where you're going with that, pal. You're not going to trick my ass. That ain't happening. Well, I got a problem. I'm looking around at 3,500 people and my buddy, and guess what they're doing?
Taking their shoes off.
Taking their freaking shoes off. You idiots. Don't fall for it. What are you doing? Why would you do that? And so now what am I going to do? I got a dilemma, right?
Definitely.
Like, what am I going to do? Walk out there? So they take you out into this big parking lot, huge parking lot where they do the firewalk for 3,500 people. So, what am I going to do? Walk out there and not take my shoes out? And then everybody's going to be pointing at me going, hey, look at that guy. There he goes. That's the guy that didn't take his shoe off. Coward.
Right.
Right. Oh, shit. Can't have that, right? So I take my shoes off. So my idea is, look, here, just calm down. Take your shoes off. And when you get out there, just go hide. Ditch your buddy. Go hide in the back. No one's going to know. No one's going to know shit. So that's my plan. Well, it gets worse because when Tony's got you going out there, he gets everybody to start clapping and chanting. And now you got 3,500 people going out there going, yes. I'm walking out there going, no, ain't gonna happen, people. Well, it gets worse because when you get out there, he's got African drummers. Oh shit! So now you got this ambiance. You got this vibration, dun 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 dun, dun, and it's intense, right? So now you got people screaming and yelling and chanting and clapping, and the drums are going. And I mean, it's a dog and pony show like you've never seen in your life, right?
Right.
Well, my thing is I'm sticking to the guns. I ditched my buddy, which was easy to do, and 3,000 people walking out there together. And then I just maneuvered my way and I went and hid in the back. Well, how do you firewalk 3,500 people? Well, you start off with what's called a big ass fire. And they started at like 2:00 in the afternoon when Tony took the stage. So they build a pit like 35 feet wide and 70 feet long. And they just throw wood into it over and over and over and over and over. And man, the next thing I know, it's all starting, it's all going, and I'm hiding in the back. Well, how do you do this? Well, let me explain so your audience knows. How you go to that pit with wheelbarrows. You fill the wheelbarrow up with coals.
Okay.
And then you take the wheelbarrow in between two lanes of sod of grass, and then you just take a flathead shovel and you sprinkle the coals on that grass. That grass is 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. And again, they just sprinkle them on top. They pat them down, and that's what you walk on. Well, again, I'm having none of it. I got it all figured out. I'm in the back. Well, Tony Robbins, why did he bring this into his seminars? Well, he knows it's literally one of the most life-changing experiences any human will ever go through. He also knows that if you don't do it, you're going to miss the paradigm shift.
Okay.
So he's like, well, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to train people to come find these people. Literally. So I'm hiding in the back. I got it all figured out, right? No, I don't. Here comes this guy out of nowhere. And he finds me. And you know, he gets probably, I don't know, 20 feet from me, and he's looking at me, and he kind of looking at me funny, like there's something wrong with me, right? Like when a dog hears a funny noise. And all of a sudden he looks at me, he goes, "Hey man, are you okay?" And when we're not okay, what do we say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
All good here, man. Nothing to see. Move along. Right.
Yeah.
And he went right for the kill shot. He was like, boom. He's like, so, hey man, you going to walk tonight? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, you idiot. Why do you think I'm hiding in the back? And so he says, well, hey man, that's cool. No problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. And I'm like, oh, okay. I like this guy. He's going to get me out of here.
Right.
No, he's not. He's tricked me. Son of a right? Because the next question he asked me, by the way, I don't know who this guy is to this day. He changed my whole life. Because the question he asked me was, well, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's do that. Let's watch. I got no problem with that. It should be fun. You know, let's go watch these people burn their feet off. And so he goes, well, look, man, you can't see anything from back here. And it's true. I got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I'm all the way at the back. I can't see anything. I can hear it. I can see the big fire over there, the glowing of the coals, right? People are chanting. They're clapping. The drums are going. They're already walking. And when they get to the celebration end, when they get to the other side, they're jumping up and down and celebrating like kids at Christmas. So, I mean, it is intense. So you can hear everything, but you can't see it. So I got in line. I took the bait, right? Well, as I'm in line, as I'm kind of walking along, another stranger comes up to me. Again, a guy, I don't know who this guy is to this day either. But he comes up to me and he whispers in my ear. And he says, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And pew, he just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What do you mean he knows when you're ready? When he says go, you go. What does that mean? So now I'm flabbergasted with that dude, right? And I'm kind of walking along. Still got 1,000 people in front of me. Can't see a darn thing. I can hear it. Everything's intense. But I get to a point, Dane, where I can see at an angle. And there they are, man. They're doing it. They are walking on fire. Every race, every creed, every color. And so now I'm mesmerized, right? I'm staring at them. It's like a car wreck, right? You can't take your eyes off of them.
Right.
And so there I am. I'm staring at them. And all of a sudden, I'm not watching where I'm going. And the next thing I know, guess where I am?
You're in the fire or in the coals.
I'm in the front of the line, that's for sure. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, my God, how in the hell did I get here? Because now I'm looking down. And there's that lane of sod, that grass, right? It's 3 feet wide, 15, 18 feet long. The coals are on top of it. They're glowing bright red. You know they're hot. It's not a question. The wheelbarrow's right there. You can feel the heat coming off. My heart is beating so hard, there's no doubt it's going to jump out of my chest any second. Well, there's a trainer standing there. And the next thing I know, the trainer says, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, now he knew he could tell. He's a trainer. He could tell I wasn't in a peak state. He could tell, that I was leaving a lot on the table. And so he got in my face and screamed at me. He's like, stronger. And I went, yes. He goes, go, go, go. Boom. I took off. Well, remember the stranger came up to me when he said, he knows when you're ready. When he says, go, you go. I did. And so I just walked across fire. Well, there's 2 guys at the end of that fire lane that stop you. They catch you. They're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. I'm wiping my feet and celebrating. And at first I thought I burnt myself, right?
Right.
But I didn't. My feet are filthy. They're dirty, but not one burnt, either foot. Well, I can tell you that literally that was one of the most life-changing moments of my life. It's exhilarating.
Right.
I mean, it's like you have like superhuman strength and ideas, and you know what I mean? Your mindset just goes pooh.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was just like, it was incredible. And again, in that moment, it's like, hey guys, let's get on the bus. Let's go climb Everest, right? Because again, in that moment, you think you can do anything.
Right.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, Dane. The next day, remember, this is a 4-day event. That was day
Right.
one, that night thereof. And the next day, man, we're all standing in the foyer to get ready to go into the venue for day 2. 3,500 people. We all firewalked the night before together. And there was a camaraderie between us unlike anything I'd ever seen or felt in my entire life. And I'm watching people. I mean, I'm studying them because, they're laughing, they're crying, they're hugging, they're talking, they're communicating about the firewalk, they're talking about their fears. It was such a beautiful moment. It was such a beautiful thing to stand with 3,500 people and be so connected to them. It was like, so did we all drink the Kool-Aid last night?
Right. Right.
Yeah, we sure as hell did.
Yeah.
And so that got me. I'm like, wow, that firewalk did that to us. Because the night before, nobody cared, right?
Yeah.
We weren't paying attention to each other. We weren't talking. We weren't communicating. Sure as hell were that next morning. So Tony knows. That's why he brought it in, because now he's got you right where he wants you.
Right.
Because now you've done the firewalk, and here's the question you might ask yourself. If I can walk on fire on hot coals that are 1,000 degrees, not burn myself, what else can I do?
Exactly.
And that's what leads into day 2. So later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers. Sweet guy, man. Guy by the name of Ted Macy. Love this guy. And he basically, I'm talking to him and I asked him, I said, so what's it like being in this environment on a regular basis? He goes, oh my God, dude, are you kidding me? Super powerful. He goes, as a matter of fact, if you'd like to come into this environment, I'll show you what you could do. He said, you see those people standing over there with the black shirts and the pink writing? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, dude, they're volunteers. They were people just like you. They came to this event and wanted to come back and be part of it. So when you get home, call Robbins Research, tell them that you want a volunteer crew application, and they'll send you one. Fill it out. Who knows? I did. And after I sent it back in, I called them. They got it. They sent me the application. I filled it out. I sent it back. And like 9 weeks later, like over 2 months later, I get a letter in the mail. And it said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins Company.
Awesome.
Well, color my ass happy.
Yeah.
There I am.
Yeah.
And so the next thing I know, I found myself at the event as a volunteer crew application member. So the application is pretty thorough, pretty intense, several pages long. So number one, they knew I had a military background. They knew I had a security background. So they immediately said, hey, we can put him on the security detail to help take care of Tony's celebrities, which I can tell you was incredible. We could do a whole podcast on that subject alone. I lived on a farm at the time. And so did I know what a log splitter is? Yeah. Do I know how to use a hatchet? Yeah. Do I know what kindling is? Yeah. Do I know the difference between oak and hickory? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they put me on the fire team, which is exactly where I wanted to be.
Right.
And so I volunteered like 5 or 6 times. And the interesting part about that is I had to pay my own way. So I was spending $1,500 every time I went because they were all over the United States, right?
Right.
Well, my wife wasn't too thrilled about that because I'm dumping $1,500 and she doesn't even know who Tony Robbins is. She's got no references, never read his book, never been to an event, nothing. And so it was creating some conflict, and rightfully so. She had a very valid point. Well, next thing I know, they offered me the subcontractor's position so that I would be on the security team and I'd be on the fire team as well as the assistant captain. Well, they paid my way, and they paid me a little salary, and they paid for my hotel and travel and all that. And they did something really smart. They gave me a free ticket for our spouses. So I got to bring her. She came, she went. And when she graduated, day 4, we were walking on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, and she went, okay, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid. I get it. This guy's a badass. You want to travel around the world with him as long as they cover all your expenses and we make a little bit, I'm good with you doing that. Awesome. And so there it was. That all went down in, I went to my first event in 95. So this was all going down in 95 and 96. 2003 rolls around, Dane, and Robbins offered me the captain's position. And what that meant was I was in charge of all of Tony's firewalks globally. So that went down in 03. In 05, we went to London. That's where we set the world record. We firewalked 12,300 people out at the Excel Center in the Docklands. And then in 2014, my life forever changed again. I'm driving down the road and my phone rings. And it's Google. And they're like, hey, Mr. Albin, are you the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins? Yes, I am. What can I do for you? If you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. No shit.
Wow.
Well, homeboy's a free agent. What you got?
Yeah.
And so the next thing I know, man, bro, I'm at Google. And interesting about that was they called me because they wanted to do a firewalk. They had 148 executives that had been in a 9-month curriculum and they were graduating. And so they wanted to create a paradigm shift experience to lock it in and create the camaraderie, because that's what firewalks do, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, well, hold on, guys. You want to do this in the middle of the day after lunch? We can't do it in the middle of the day. We'll have to do it at night. They said, well, the schedule doesn't allow that. And you got any other ideas? And I go, yeah, well, we could, we could do a glass walk. They're like, what? I said, a glass walk. You mean like walk on broken glass? That's exactly what I'm saying. They're like, ooh, tell us about that. So, boom, the next thing I know, I'm doing the glass walk. Well, when I was at Google, I met some of the executives, cool people. And one of them, she sat me down. She said, look, Dave, if I were in your shoes, let me tell you what I'd do. I'd start my own company, and I'd take what you do out to corporate America. They'll eat you up, man. They'll be all over you because you're at the top of your game. They'll hire you in a heartbeat,
right? Because
you can create a paradigm shift. You can create one of the most life-changing paradigm shift experiences on earth.
Wow.
There'll be a huge demand for you. And they told the truth. There I was. Shortly after I went to Google, I went to NASA. Then I went to Notre Dame, and then Virginia Tech, and then Remax, and Heineken, and Microsoft, and the EO organization. Next thing I know, I'm with Dane Gentry on his podcast. So, right.
Yeah.
So
hey man, this is the biggest thing you've done so far.
Damn right, brother. Right. So, you know what I mean? You never know. Keep your mind open, strive, live one day at a time. And it all comes down to a couple things. I believe that the two most important times in anyone's life is the moment they're born and the moment they figure out why. It's all about purpose.
I agree with you, my friend. People ask me, or I hear people say these things. I remember people would always say they had this dream or they wanted to be this when they were little. And I never had these dreams. I never had anything that I really thought that I wanted to do until about a year ago. I kind of figured it out what I wanted to do. And this is it in a sense. I want to help people. But I want to do it on a broader stage. I want to get into the speaking thing and all these things, and I'm going to, I'm headed that way. And I finally found what I'm good at. And that's what I'm good at. People tend to listen to me. And I've got a backstory too, it's not a real good backstory, but I'm going to tell you what, man, it built me into the man I am today. And I can definitely tell you how to get out of it. And that's the thing.
Well, that's the whole thing. And considering what an epidemic we have in this country with suicide, with drugs, with alcohol, there's not many warriors out there like you and I that, can take care of this, man.
Nope.
And so kudos to you for getting that figured out. One of my other mentors told me something that I never forgot. And he said, Dave, understand something. Every human has two lives. And the second one starts when you realize you have only one. I went, whoa, okay. I get you. I see where you're going with that. I think that, and you're talking about the podcasting, and podcasting is incredible. Mm-hmm. I'm not a host. You are. You do all the work. All I had to do was show up here and run my mouth. You got to do all the editing and scheduling. And, people don't realize there's a lot of work that it takes. And it takes a whole lot of work to become successful at it. You got to be committed. You got to be all in. You can't dabble here. Dabbling isn't
Nope.
going to get you up in the rankings at podcasting. So again, kudos to you, Dane, for doing that. So, I was on a podcast here a couple of months ago, and my life changed again. I mean, obviously, corporate America has been really, really good to me.
Yeah.
We've done some of the biggest companies in the world, and we've done a lot of smaller companies too, which I really love. Companies, a lot of kids, high schools, junior high schools, YMCA, community centers, places like that. That's my sweet spot. That's one of my superpowers is with the kids. And so anyway, I'm on a podcast and we did the interview. And after the interview, we were talking sidebar, right? After we had stopped the recording. And she asked me a question. She said, David, have you ever done a firewalk for veterans? And I said, no, why? And she goes, well, we have 200 vets. And she goes, and I'm going to tell you straight up, you have the ability to save these men and women's lives. There's a high suicide rate, right? I go, yeah. I heard it's like 22 a day. She goes, that's not true. Not even close.
Yeah.
That's only if they leave a note.
Yeah.
It's more like 50 a day, 45 to 50 a day. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm a vet. My father who raised me is a vet, all of that. And so I went, okay, I'm in. However, I need a couple of days to move this around in my head. So can you give me a couple of days? She's like, of course. So I went to bed that night and I woke up in the middle of the night and it was clear as day. And it was like, I knew exactly what the calling was going to be. And I came up with the idea, Operation Do No Harm. So, and I also came up with 4 categories, not just vets. Vets are important. So I came up with vets, first responders, single moms, raised by a single mom. And some of my best friends in the world are first responders, specifically firefighters and cops.
Mm-hmm.
And then kids that have been abused and neglected. So where that went was we've got our first Veterans Firewalk, Operation Do No Harm. It's going to be in Modesto, California, April 12th and the 13th. The sponsor there, the boots on the ground, is the Sunrise Modesto Rotary, who are really, really cool. One of the guys, Ed Pericott, he's a vet, and he asked me, hey, would you bring this to Modesto? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So there we are. We're doing it. So now what happens is that instead of corporate America hiring me to come in and bring in to do the event for them, which they can still do,
Right.
what they can do is I have a really cool option. They can make a donation to Operation Do No Harm. Operation Do No Harm will hire Firewalk Productions. Firewalk Productions will come in and put on the entire event. We'll do everything. We'll do all the heavy lifting, everything. And then that company who sponsored it will get all the glory.
Right.
So if you want to make your brand look good, you want to look good to your community or your county or your city, you want to bring in your employees. Oh my gosh, talk about a golden handcuff. Talk about making yourself look good in front of, your community and specifically your employees. That's a great way to create a golden handcuff.
Right.
And, and they donate money to big things and, and sponsor stuff all the time. So now, that's where we are. Where corporate America can come in and make a nice donation, write it off, and make their company look spectacular at the same time.
That's awesome, man. I had a guy on Saturday, by a guy by the name of Donald Dunn. He's a retired sergeant from the Army. And he started a lot of things for the guys, man. He started internet radio called gunroomradio.com. And
yeah,
I'm going to send him an email about you. I think that because he's all about the suicide thing too. And let him be on the lookout for that as well. Anyone that wants to be involved in any kind of way, how do they find you, man?
Yeah, I'm real easy. I'm very, very accessible, Dane. All they have to do is just go to firewalkadventures.com. It's all one word, firewalkadventures with an S, .com. Everything's there. My calendar's there. All the information about all the different experiences, the firewalking, the glass walking, the board break, brick break, arrow break, rebar bend. We got a whole bunch of really very upscale corporate team building experiences, some what I would call extreme. The other thing that's there too, that some people I found that have an interest, is the Dave Albin Firewalk Academy. So the Academy is something I do once a year in October. I do it up here in the Appalachian Mountains in the northwestern part of the state of North Carolina, where I live. And they come here and I teach them all this stuff. So I teach them how to put on a firewalk, how to put on a glass walk, how to get yourself out into the community, how to talk to fire marshals, how to, get involved with your chamber of commerces, really how to create spectacular life-changing experiences. It's 5.5 days. We keep it small. We keep it intimate. Last year here in we had the Academy in October. We had 11 graduates. And so we'll probably have something close to the same this year. So that's there. Or if they want to talk about, putting on a firewalk, for the community so that they can support either vets or first responders or kids or moms, whatever, they can find all that information there.
Awesome, man. I like what you're doing. Anything that
Thanks, bro.
helps us all better ourselves. I've never thought about doing a firewalk, but you've kind of got me convinced, and it's probably something I need to look into, to be honest about it.
Well, I'd love to invite you to the Academy, man. You come to the Academy, you can go, not only can you do it, but you can facilitate it. You're still in Franklin?
Yeah, I'm in Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done several events in Nashville. I've got a client of mine, and I've got several buddies that are in Franklin.
Okay.
I got a buddy of mine who owns a company there called Replace Your University. Michael Lush, great guy, man. Brilliant. He's basically teaching the world all the things you never get taught in college or high school.
Okay.
Like one of the things, he's got a thing called Replace Your Mortgage. He shows people how to pay their mortgage off in 5 to 7 years without changing their lifestyle. I mean,
wow.
it's insane, but the calculator doesn't lie.
No.
So it's really cool, man. And he teaches things like that you would never think. It's like, what's the word mortgage mean?
No.
Hey, my German Shepherd here. She's looking out the door here. What's he see? Oh, he sees a deer. Yeah, like what's the word mortgage mean? Well, it means death pledge. What? Yeah, take the word mort. Mort from mortgage. Mort is means mortician.
Yeah.
It's short for mortician. Gage is French for pledge. Yeah, mortgage means death pledge. So he's really cool. I'm just saying, I got a lot of buddies in Franklin, in Nashville. I got really good friends there as well, and so I'm there quite often. But yeah, man, if you ever want to come to the Academy, and matter of fact, if any of your listeners would ever want to come to the Academy, if they get hold of me and tell me that they were on your podcast, I'll give them the friends and family rate on that. So
awesome, man. I definitely will. I'm gonna talk to my wife about it. She'll listen to this too, and then she'll probably say something about it because she knows I'm into all these kind of things, man. Energy and just all these different things now. And
it's good stuff, man. You can really can change a lot of people's lives, bro.
And what you said a while ago about your mentor saying that you have 2 lives, and you find that out once you realize, I can't remember the way you worded it just then, but that is so true, because that is when I woke up, man. Is when I realized, hey, I'm gonna die, man, and I didn't want to die, and that's when I woke
2
up.
lives,
So
man.
I had 2 lives, man, and
then you realize you have only one.
That's right. All right, my friend.
I know. It's so profound, man. It's just like when my mentor told me that, Dane, I was like, what? Oh man, I've been waiting my whole life to hear that. So
and
anyway, man, I just want to say to you and publicly to your audience, man, thank you so much for having me on your show. It means a great deal, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
We definitely can, man. Anytime, man. Shoot me an email, and I'll definitely be in touch with you. And I'm gonna give David or Donald your information too. I want to get him in touch with you. I know that'd be good for all the veterans he deals with as well. And I want to thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Have a good rest of your day, and God bless, and off to many great adventures for you, my friend.
Thanks, bro.
All right, man. See you.
Ciao.